If I created my own system around how I wanted to do things, my strengths, my weaknesses, results I wanted, then that system actually became really fantastic.
Like, put a person in front of me and let's talk, and
Yes.
I can take consults and I can have you feel very excited, but also very safe and wanting to move forward that day. If I have Devin's schedule, I can't do that. Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast. I'm Dr. Galen and Dr.
I'm Dr. Davina Detrik.
And we are going to be talking to you about the business and the mindset of dentistry.
What's up, gang? Welcome to the Dental and Mental Podcast. And here we are, yet again.
Hey, it's good to see you.
Long time no see, sweets.
Literally long time no see.
Today.
Which is interesting because we're going to be talking about...
Because of what we're going to be talking about, right?
Yeah.
So we're actually being not completely facetious there. Believe it or not, feels like it's been a little while since we've seen each other, and we live with each other. So
Yeah, tackling work-life balance this week.
Yes, it is the work-life balance. What a overarching and very hot topic, right, for all of us.
Yeah, we can talk about that, but I need to talk about something before we get there because it really ruined my day.
Talk away.
So obviously, listeners, go look this up for yourself. I'm just spreading the bad news, which I don't know anything about really.
Okay.
But you sent me an article this morning saying that there is research coming out of Mount Sinai saying that we can't have xylitol anymore.
It's a sad day, guys. It's a sad day for pretty much every alternative dental product.
Right?
Yeah.
It's talking about xylitol and increased risk for stroke and heart attack. I'm not saying these things, guys. This is unverified, okay? I just briefly read an article. It upset me, and so I want it to upset you.
She cannot be the only one upset, guys. You have to share that burden.
Yeah. So anybody wants to dig further into that research and then send me the cliff notes, that would be fantastic. But I'm just letting you know the very limited information that you sent me this morning.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't obviously deal with the stress myself either. So I decided to shoulder that burden and give a little bit to you as well at 6 a.m.
Right.
Yeah. Just to make sure that your day was going to go great.
Right. So whoever
Before I made your coffee with xylitol.
No. So yeah, we skipped it today because we use coffee. We use xylitol.
It actually tastes better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, whatever.
That's also out.
Well, it's like being like, oh yeah, I gave up, wine, fun, fruit, sugar. Everything is so much better. Is it? Is it better?
You have a choice. You can just die of cancer or you can die of boredom. That's really what you can do.
Truly seems to be.
Yeah.
Truly seems to be the choices. Okay, so anyways, back on track.
If you care to look it up, it was on CNN.
It was a CNN article, but the research was coming from Mount Sinai.
Correct. Yep, from Mount Sinai. Increased risk of cardiovascular events.
Yes, because it makes
stroke, heart attack.
It makes your platelets sticky. According to this brief article.
Yep. So increased
allegedly.
Increased clots.
Right.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So give it a look. Not in that article, but this is something that my hygienist had told me about, and I started doing a little bit of digging on. Apparently, xylitol bacteria have evolved now, where they actually can utilize xylitol. So it used to be bacterial static, right? And now it actually can be utilized by certain types of bacteria to produce acid. So good times.
Okay, great. So
it's all getting worse. Basically,
Carnivore MD is onto something, and we're all just going to be meat and veggie people.
Saladino's been right all along. We didn't know it. We're all going to be sitting there taping red plastic over our fridge lights.
I really like him, but I watch how I do like him, but I watch how he lives, and I'm like, oh no, not for me.
I'm going to be shirtless, tan, and rolling around on some skateboards. I'm going to be a different guy.
Okay, well, back to work-life balance instead of, trying to balance our alcohol sugars.
I know, right? Well, so this is a topic that comes up a lot.
Can we call it something different?
I would love to.
Work-life balance is even making me sleepy.
Work-life balance sounds like you got punished and you have to listen to a podcast with us.
That's exactly, no, that's literally
This is
what
what parents are doing to get more life in their work-life balance. They're making their kids listen to this.
But words matter.
They do.
Right?
So what would we call it?
I mean, maybe it'll come to us through the course of this conversation. But
by the time you're actually watching this, you'll be like, oh, yeah, that's the title. Maybe if we get creative enough.
Okay. So anyways, let's jump into it. We can jump into it from a variety of different aspects, I think.
Yeah.
Especially from the mental side.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be talking about it. From the dental side, you're going to be talking about it. But this is a conversation that comes up a lot when I'm coaching.
Yeah, it comes up a ton when you're coaching. This is actually probably the predominant thing that you work on, whether it's direct or indirect, right? Because at the end of the day, we're sort of programmed to go to work, do our thing, and we don't really, it's subconscious to realize that all of that is for something, right? There's a why behind it all. So it's to afford some form of life that you've been aspiring to, or that you want to live, that you want your kids to experience, whatever that thing be. And I think it's really easy to miss the why because you're so in the program. Go to work, come home, you're reactive. You kind of just, life's coming at you, you just kind of figure it out on the fly. There's not as much intention behind things perhaps. So talk a little bit about some of the clients that you work with. How do they diagnose it? If they're seeing it themselves or it comes up in conversation, what's the typical manifestation of this problem?
Well, I don't necessarily think that there is something that comes up that sparks that for them.
Okay.
And I will say too that we have to lay the groundwork that this will show up completely different for men and women.
Ooh.
That will show up. It will show up completely different for men and women. So I will say that. And the reason why I say it doesn't really spark a conversation or that they know that it's a problem is that my coaching clients in particular solve problems by outworking them.
Okay.
So they solve problems.
Outproduce a problem.
Yeah. Right. So they solve problems usually by outproducing them, by outworking them. And so usually work harder is the solution, not the problem.
Yeah. So as an example, I mean,
from a mindset perspective, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Devin and I have done this, right? It could be a lack of training, or it could be a particular staff member who just keeps making a mistake. But instead of dealing with that issue, because you're like, I'm in between patients, I got all these things going on, we'll deal with it a different day. That mistake costs you money. And then you just think, instead of trying to deal with this whole thing right now and doing a training day and shutting down for that and this, that, and the other, let's just stay later. Let's just put more people in. Let's produce more so that didn't hit the books, didn't hurt us.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
And that's a very easy thing to do in so many different ways.
Right. So high achievers usually don't know, they don't recognize that as a problem. It's actually the solution to the majority of their problems. And really where that conversation starts to come up is when they want other things. And we have to then look at their life and all the things that they currently have in it and try and make room for the new thing that they want.
Okay, I'm going to throw another boring word in here and see what your reaction is to it. Systems.
You know, I used to hate that word because it really felt like it clipped my wings, like my creative wings. I'm like, I don't want to be trapped in a cage. Systems to me sounds like being trapped in a cage. And I think the more I have really leaned on systems, the more freedom they have given me.
Was it immediate, or did you feel like it was like,
no, I went kicking and screaming into systems. Absolutely kicking and screaming, because my perception of what it would cost me did not feel like it would be worth it.
Well, and you're also, I think, by nature, a bit more, the term rebellious is probably not the word, but
it is.
Yeah, I was going to go darker. Just straight up revolutionary. No, you just by nature, you kind of buck against the system and systems, and because that would probably feel like freedom more. But we both know feelings aren't facts.
Right.
So,
But
yeah,
so I
talk a
think,
little bit about your journey that way, because that's an interesting thing.
well, I think the systems, the reason why I would push back against it is because it was usually something that somebody else created that to me did not pertain to my life or how I wanted to live it. Therefore, it was irrelevant to me.
Okay.
So if I created my own system around how I wanted to do things, my strengths, my weaknesses, results I wanted, then that system actually became really fantastic. It's when I tried to take somebody else's and like,
That's interesting, actually.
right, when I tried to take somebody else's thing and I tried to live by it, that's for the birds. I will never, I can pretty confidently say I will never be a part of a 5 a.m. morning club routine. I will not do it.
Yeah.
I don't want to. I will not do it. If that's you, good for you.
I'm
I will
part
never,
of it, and it sucks.
I will never be joining those people.
I'm in that system.
Well, but not like to the place where it's like my day doesn't actually get started until 9 a.m., but I wake up at 5 so I can journal, ice bath, run a marathon,
Right.
like whatever these
Right.
people are doing. Good for you. I am not in that club. Right. But when you
Yeah.
hear, if you want success, you want X, Y, and Z, you've got to be part of the 5 a.m. club, then you can start to feel some kind of way about not doing it or forcing yourself or wondering what's wrong with you. I find when I build systems to match what I am good at, the systems, I'm into them.
I actually really like that because it's a customization without like too much liberality. Like where you're able to just do whatever you're feeling like doing. I think customization kind of has that feel.
Yes.
It has that vibe of like, well, I'm going to customize this to myself. I'm going to tailor it to who I am, which really is just kind of like fancy terms for I'm going to do what I want. Versus to get where I want to go, which is a custom desire, I now have to tailor and design a system that will allow me and my personality type and, you know, your environment too. Like we're going to talk about this a little bit, but some people have no kids. Some people have 5 or 6. Well, you're probably going to need different systems, right? Like you're completely different people.
Right.
Based upon where you live can be a huge difference. What days of the week, you know, when you're going into work, how big your team is. Like all these things are actually big environmental factors that do play a part. In the same way with health, we're talking about health earlier, but some people can tolerate some things way better than others. And so you have to design a diet and a workout routine that's customized to you.
Yes. Yes. So from a coaching perspective, I create a lot of systems with clients that are tailor-made to them, to their strengths, to their preferences, to when they are the sharpest, to the type of lifestyle they want to have.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's not difficult to keep up because it's actually tailored to them.
It's sustainable at that point.
Right, right.
You know, I will say that to your point, I hadn't really thought about this before, but to your point, you know, you can see like disciples of people and you're like, you can just tell like that person's worked with so-and-so.
Oh,
You just know it.
oh
right?
yeah. Mm-hmm.
Don't hear this the wrong way, but it's hard to know who worked with you if you're looking for that, if you're looking for that string or that flavor of like, that looks like Davina, because you're just really masterful, I think, at helping a person maintain their individuality. Like you get them their goals. If there was a metric, it would be success, you know, and success monetarily, but also it's the life that they want to live. It's being a better parent. It's being a better spouse. It's being a better leader in their practices, cash flowing better. You hit those metrics, right? Those are the things that people are coming to you for. They nail those, but those are not identifiable traits that people trace back to you. And well, I didn't mean it actually mean it in a great way. I think that's actually really cool. People get to still be themselves.
Oh, I think it is too, because no 2 of my docs that I work with will look the same either. They don't look like me and they don't look like each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
And their systems don't look like each other either.
No, this is interesting. I've never really thought about this before. It's actually kind of cool.
I think so.
Look at you go.
No, I wouldn't. It's not even about me, right? But it is about what they want and how do we create something that's going to get them that result without making them feel bad about why they haven't got it yet, right? So another thing that I'll see come up with coaching clients is they spend a lot of money with a coach or a consultant or a program or whatever it is, and that person is like, you need to do these exact things in order to be able to do this result. So then they feel like the money is wasted if they're not doing this exact thing in this exact way to get this exact result. But they might not be the type of person who can do it in that way. Mm. And so they feel really bad and they keep trying for something that is never going to be them.
Well, it kind of creates a doom loop that way.
That's exactly it.
Because you can rally enough. It goes back to your outproduce the problem. Like you can muster enough effort to get some measurable degree of momentum, but the momentum is quickly sabotaged by shame or guilt or fatigue that pulls you right back down into really just kind of this like motion state. And so you get out of it and you get pulled right back in. And that's unfortunate, but that's true for most of us.
Yeah. Well, we did this at Vita, actually. So you can speak a little bit to that. When I went in and did the team training, your team and you operate very different than Devin and his team.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when we make those two things look the same, one of you will be driven crazy. So one of the things that I did with the Vita team is I did a human design analysis on everybody in the team. And without going too much into the depth, for sake of conversation, we'll just say it's a form of personality testing. We'll just say that without going a ton into depth around that.
It's just a much more rich and organic version. It's not you're an A, B, C, or D. It's not or disc profiling. It's not that, right? It's so many more layers deep.
Yes, like a ton of layers of depth.
It's like the why you do something, not just like I am a robot in this way.
Yes. Mm-hmm. So when I did that with the team at Vita, it was very interesting to see that the way you do things also happens to be the same match as everybody on your team, and vice versa with Devin. Mm-hmm. And when I talk to them, and this is not like, you made this up. When we pull the profiles, we see the delineation between you and Devin. And it was interesting to ask the team how your team members feel if they work with Devin and vice versa. And it's difficult for them because they like the pace that their doctor works at.
Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess the basic, if I had to kind of summarize what we learned, Devin is the sort of person that if he's idle for too long, and too long could be 30 seconds, he's going to start to go kind of crazy. He likes movement. He likes things happening, and he's got a lot of energy to get out. And so he likes to see if it's a 4-hour block, his preference in the way that he operates is to see probably 9 patients in that time frame, and to be bouncing, because that makes him feel kind of alive. It also feeds into that part of him that likes to connect with people.
Yes.
By contrast, I'm a lot more of give me one patient for 4 hours. Let me hammer through a very specific task and do it very, very deeply and well, with a couple of little outspurts to do like a consult or to talk to somebody. But I don't like being pulled a million different directions.
Right.
And that's because I like to focus on a singular task and get it to completion.
Yes. So that gives you energy.
That gives me energy.
Right. That gives you energy is to have space.
Correct. Yep.
Having a lot of space for Devin actually depletes his energy.
Yeah.
He gets more energy by
Or he goes and takes it from other people.
Right. So I think that's a really important distinction.
It
because
is.
As we're talking about this, if we tried to build 2 of the same systems for 2 very different people, one of you is going to feel incredibly frustrated.
And I think that's actually, to that point, you put me in Devin's system, and to the people in that system who like that system, it'll feel like, oh, we just hit mud. Like things are not moving smoothly at all anymore. We're slowed down. There's something in the way, right? And if you put his team with me, it can feel like not as much is happening, right? So I need more energy. I need more something to take place. Mm-hmm. But the beauty of it is that those things complement each other very well in an office, because there's 2 different types and styles, and there's patients that fit different models, which is great. the funny thing is that when you did it for our team, which again, we'd already been working together for either a year or a year and a half, I think at that point in time, my team was with me and he'd had his team for a couple of years.
But your team's kind of self-selected. Like
we
had
didn't
preferences of who they wanted to work with.
Completely.
And it matched up with your preference of who you wanted to work with, right?
Yep. The way my team moved, it was wild. It was like a magic trick. Truly. It was like a magic trick. And when you like self-selected and you saw that my team was with me subconsciously. They had subconsciously self-selected to work with me because they like that same sort of pace, and Devin the same thing, and even down to like the granular level of our admin team and who works with us that way. So kind of funny. It's kind of funny how that all came together, but yeah.
Right. So
customization is what we're getting at.
Right. So the customization, when we put one doctor in a system that is not built for them, they can wonder why they're not having success. They can feel incredibly frustrated. They can go looking for the next solution. To your point, the loop is really difficult to get out of because you think that there's something wrong with you and you can try and outwork the problem. The other thing I will say to point out at Vita is that you may like a slower pace and Devin may like a quicker pace. It does not equate to massive differences financially.
No.
But a lot of times, especially within American culture, the hustle harder, the Gary V, like that, Americans are very we like that, right? So if you're not a person that works like that, you can start to feel some kind of way about you're never going to have the success that you think that you can achieve unless you work like that.
Well, I think it's one of the dangers of social media. And for us kind of choosing the menu, we've talked about this, like this is the whole reason why we built the Thrive Lab, that too many people are Frankensteining things that don't actually fit their personality type, but just because like that stuck because someone told me that was what I needed to do. And so you have all these very competing ideas and you're trying to somehow put all these competing styles and case presentations and skill sets into your practice, but none of it actually is synthesized. None of it actually glues together. And so very difficult to get results. And what tends to happen is you're not getting the results. And instead of solving the cause, you go find another skill set. You go to another CE. And so you're just adding more shit to it all, right? That's a problem.
Right.
Versus, and we do the same thing with patients, right? We have patients who will come to us and Devin and I, our primary goal is to help them understand why it's happening. If you have a root canal that's required on an upper right tooth, I don't want to let's just go do that right now. I want to know, how do we get you out of pain? But let's make sure it doesn't happen again, which means there's something else that's going on here. Why does this happen in isolation? We got to figure that out.
Yeah.
That's the same thing we should be doing with our practices. It's the same thing we should be doing with our lives. It's a much more intentional, slow it down, bird's eye view. And then I think that's why your coaching is successful actually, is because you're able to do that. You're able to be the guide or the Sherpa, and you don't have a horse in the race. It's not like you have to look like Hormozy. You have to look like Gary V. You have to look like me. It's, I'm going to diagnose this and I'm going to give you what you need based upon what you want.
Absolutely. And it creates a lot of space, right? Yeah. So if this conversation is about work-life balance, I think you and I together between Thrive Lab and between coaching really help a person to say, okay, what is it that you want to create? And let's start stripping away a lot of things that don't work or a lot of shoulds, right? A lot of it's like, well, I should do this. I should do that. So-and-so's doing that and they're successful. Okay, well, what is it that you're good at? What is it that you want to do? Mm-hmm. What are we creating here? And when we start from that blank slate and then we build systems around that, we build perspectives around that, we build metrics and focus around things that are actually important to that person, everything gets to change.
Well, it gets to be fun again.
Yeah.
It gets to be fun again, and which doesn't mean easy. There's still a lot of work. Still a lot of work.
For sure. I was going to say,
Building systems is just hard in general. It is. I think it's very difficult. And actually, that's probably one of the reasons why people adopt other people's systems, because you think it's plug and play. I just take this, slap it into my deal, good to go. That works for software. It doesn't work for systems.
100%. I think one of the things that comes up during coaching, which is really fun, is there's this question like, how do you do it, right? Everyone wants to know the how to a system. I'm like, that's actually very irrelevant. You are a smart person. We could build out in a system in 2 minutes, right? You already know what you need to do. You just haven't actually given yourself permission to do it the way you want to do it. Another mindset that is prevalent in dentists. Okay, so 2 pieces. A lot of dentists can show up with a need to be right. Okay, so
you can stop there. That hurts too much.
A need to be right. But the other part of that, the flip side to that, is a need to not be wrong. And those 2 things are different. And those 2 mindsets will keep you trapped in getting to a solution because you're afraid to either you want to be right about your way of doing it, about your perspective, or you're afraid to be wrong. And so you've got to prove that the way you're doing it is in fact a good way of doing it.
How would you explain that to somebody who doesn't really quite get that verbiage?
Okay, so a need to be right is this is the way. I know the way to do the thing.
They're so confident in their way that's kind of like move aside, right?
Yes, but it's also not being willing to entertain other perspectives. Okay, so I will give you an example. I had this was years ago, but a discovery call with a dentist who was interested in coaching. And the main problem that she presented with is wanting to have a fuller schedule because she wanted to have more production. Okay. And the solution that she presented to the problem was, I need to go back to a GPR because if I went to a GPR, I would learn a different skill set, multiple skill sets. And so when I had a hole in my schedule, I would be able to fill it with being able to provide a bunch of different kinds of dentistry. So therefore, I wouldn't have any more holes in my schedule because I would always be able to perform that skill set in order to fill that hole.
Right.
Okay. So as we're talking, I'm like, well, that is one way to solve this problem. That is not the way that I would choose to solve that problem.
Yeah.
Because there are...
You could definitely solve it with a partial, but probably not the best idea.
Right. So it's like, yes, that is one way to solve the problem. That is not the way that I would solve the problem because we were talking about investing in a GPR, the money, the time, all of this, what happens to right there. My head is just like, this is not the most efficient way to solve this problem.
Right.
If your problem is I have holes in the schedule.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So as we're talking about this, it became very clear to me that this person was, no, that is the only way you'd solve the problem, even when counterpoints were presented.
So they were coming to you really looking for permission or validation that
this was
to go do this.
That this was a good idea.
Okay. So they weren't actually even really interested in coaching. They actually really wanted you just to justify their decision.
Well, at that point, it was like, this is just not a fit. So I don't know what they were there for. I just knew that I didn't want to be there anymore. So we'll just say that. Okay.
I love that.
Because it was like, we can't.
I didn't want to be there anymore.
We're not speaking the same language. Yeah. This relationship would never get off the ground. Right. So that is a need to be right. The way that I'm looking at this is right and accurate. There are no other ways to see it. I am going to continue down the path that I've chosen to the final end and conclusion.
Okay.
So that's the need to be right.
Okay.
The need to not be wrong is there can be a lot of different ways to do things, but I'm not wrong about the way that I'm doing things.
Okay. Can you give me an example of that?
So this looks a lot like if you say anything about the way I'm doing things, I could provide evidence of why this is a good idea.
Okay. So criticism is tough for this kind of person.
Right. It's like, I understand that there are multiple perspectives, but my perspective is valid too. My perspective is valid too. Everybody else can have their perspective, but just because your perspective is in opposition to mine does not make me wrong.
Okay.
And so this can come across as very defensive for their position.
Okay. Interesting.
And so it can also feel like they're making a decision and they have to justify it to other people. It's not I'm making this decision and it just is what it is. It's like, I have to prove to you why my decision's okay.
This is actually pretty interesting because especially as we're thinking about systems and customization, I'm not sure if it's accurate to think of it this way, but the person who has a need to be right is kind of more like, there's one system. It's the 5 a.m. club. You have to do it. It's the right way.
Yes.
Versus the other person who's like, I've been doing it my way. And my way's good too. And you're like, but you're lacking systems. So it's actually, that's why it's not working. And you're like, it's my way. Like, don't be shitting on my way.
Well,
it's so custom. It's like my thing, and you get defensive over it, making it almost like it's a personal thing because you have identity wrapped up.
Yes.
In that way of doing things.
Right. So those two things can present, and those two things can actually inhibit a person from giving themselves permission to find a solution that would actually be better than the one they've committed to. Mm-hmm. So somebody really has to want a result more than they want to either be right or not be wrong. The commitment has to be more towards the result. And that's what I find with coaching is that my clients who have that let that go, they may have it in the beginning, but once I point it out, these are people who are like, cool, I am ready to let it go as long as if I let this go, you help me get to where I want to go. Mm-hmm. Then we're off to the races. But the people who want to hold on to that the longest, that takes the longest to get results. It's like, put this thing down and let's go do the damn thing. And then we can move really quickly.
Right.
And so usually when people come to me for coaching, they're like, I could care less about those things, but I want this result. And so then when I point out different solutions, they're ready to do it.
Okay.
And so
Makes
back
sense.
to the whole point of work-life balance, that becomes incredibly fun because you start to see results. Nobody likes to do things. Nobody likes to be in a calorie deficit for 20 years and not lose a pound, right? Nobody would do it.
Right.
You have to have some signs that this thing is working. So once we start to put in systems that are actually built and customized for them, and once they're okay seeing something from a different perspective, then we can start to create some magic.
Okay. No, that's starting to make a lot of sense, actually. I like that answer. Because it's something that you don't necessarily hear a lot of. You do hear a lot of, you've got to do it this way, or people kind of going off on their own, and it's maybe not efficient, and it's maybe not necessarily working, but they're kind of addicted to it being their way. And we've experienced this. I mean, even in terms of, it's been a great learning curve for myself. You and Devin are definitely more of efficiency. Let's get it done. Whatever is, going to get this job done the fastest. Let's make it happen. Let's not spend too much time just making decisions. Dylan and I are a lot more like creative. Let's go search out some things. Let's go find stuff. When you mix those two together, this like systems and customization, you get this really cool blend of something that's a unique solution that's also efficient for that problem, right?
Yes.
But left to our own devices, one kind of lacks the secret sauce of being novel or interesting or, being sustainable because it's not as fun. The other one gets totally lost in aesthetics and, something different and something novel, and maybe you don't stick with it long enough and all the rest.
Right.
It's something really cool about bringing those two together. When we're talking about work-life balance, I think people do need that sense of permission that you can do both. You can have it be custom and you can also have it be systematic. And if you bring those two together, you actually just might get what it is that you've been looking for. And that's where the solution lies.
100%. I remember when I was clinically practicing, I hated my afternoon schedule. There was something about taking an hour for lunch that just ruined my whole life. You have to go out and eat, or you're full, you're tired, you shut
just
off.
Tired.
I hated it. I absolutely hated it. Because then my afternoon was just trash. And I always felt that way. So when I cut out my lunch and I worked straight through and left an hour earlier, I was so happy, so efficient, absolutely on it.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the places where I added some customization and changed everything about my production, about how my PM schedule operated. Just one little small tweak.
Right.
Right. Somebody else might like a longer lunch. It's like, oh, I really get rejuvenated. I like to read, take a nap, whatever it is. And then I go back and I crush. But those two people operate very differently. Yet if they're told to be in the same system, one of them is going to think that they are not doing it well enough.
No, it's actually super interesting because it does come on the heels of Devin and I recording stuff for Essential. And as we were talking about scheduling. So we're going through like the building blocks that are the most essential ingredients that are required to have a thriving business and practice. Okay. So as you're going through this, it's like, okay, you got things like coding and scheduling and team and whatever, right? All these different pieces. But when we got to schedule, it was one of the longer recordings because we were talking about our different ways of doing things, while also leaving it open to the listener, to the doctors inside the lab to be able to say, all right, this is what I take from this. This is how I can make it my own. And as we were going through it, Devin was talking about his way, and it's very efficient. Mm-hmm. It's a very efficient way of doing it. And I described my way, which is very customized to who I am. And it basically leaves holes in the schedule. And his first commentary was like, and now you guys see how stupid his way is and how great my way is, right? And so we all got a good laugh, but I was like, this is exactly what we're talking about. There is something that can be missed based upon a person's personality. I've looked at my own numbers. I've gone through the analytics, and I know that I'm phenomenal at same-day dentistry. Like, put a person in front of me and let's talk, and I can take consults, and I can have you feel very excited, but also very safe and wanting to move forward that day. If I have Devin's schedule, I can't do that because it's filled. So I don't have time with people to form those relationships. So I actually like building in holes into my schedule. Mm-hmm. Now for somebody else, that may not work. So we outlined probably a good 3 to 4 different principles that help you choose which way is more you in that, which I think is helpful. But it was interesting to see how, in some ways, polar opposite he and I are because of the way we interact with people and the way we get energy and the way energy is pulled from us.
Yes. Okay, so if you were a need to not be wrong, you would just be like, no, my way is like it works for me. Look at this and look at my metrics, and it's very defensive, right? Mm-hmm. A need to be right is look at my production. Let's look at the scoreboard. This month is absolutely crushing it. Mm-hmm. Everybody needs a schedule like this if they want to sell dentistry. So that's the difference between the two. So I love that you gave that because you could see a need to not be wrong and a need to be right if we used that example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's actually super helpful for people.
Right, but somebody that's neutral is like, well, I'm going to do me. This works for me. I have the metrics to back it up. So I think I'm just going to keep doing me, but thank you.
Well, part of what is interesting about, so really, and tell me if I'm wrong here, but if we talk about systems and we talk about customization, on one side, you really do have structure that you can rely upon. And on the other, you have this sense of sustainability because it's you, right? Now introduce life. Life comes at you, and there's all these things that are happening, right? It could be socioeconomics. It could be global economics. It could be a kid gets sick.
Right.
You got a team member is pregnant and is going to be leaving the practice. Someone's moving away, like whatever it is. So here goes your perfect system, and it just gets rained on. If you don't have something that's custom, it's going to be very difficult for you to pivot and make decisions because you don't really know why it is that you do things.
Exactly.
Right? There's not a why. There's not a compass. But at the same time, that momentum and the ability to make decisions quickly and to keep it in structure is built by the systems. So it's like you really do need both because life is change.
Yes.
It's constantly changing. You probably could adopt just about anyone's system if life was this. It was a flat line.
Right.
But it's not.
Right. Exactly.
So.
Exactly. So I think that that's how, as we're talking, I mean, and we'll get into on part 2 where we talk about life. But I think really the take-home message for the work part of the balance is this. It is the customization. It is the structure. I mean, think about a cup of water, right? The cup is the structure. The water is the creativity. It's the movement. You can't just pour water onto a flat table, right? Yeah. And you can't just have an empty cup when you're thirsty. You really do need both.
That's a mic drop. That's good. I love that.
It's a silly...
Let's not drop these other ones.
I mean, it's a silly example, but there's lots of places where you have to... That's how you make things magical, too. There is structure and there is creativity. It really is the and.
It is. It is. And I think if you're going to have a life well lived, which is kind of what we're all looking for, you want to have a life that has memories and experiences and that was productive and you left it better than when you first came. I think those are the things that we're looking for. And that's going to require those two elements. You really have to have them both and you have to have them working together. And oftentimes you just need a little bit of help. Kind of A, getting permission that you can do it a different way. And B, helping you maybe see something that you haven't seen before. I know I've benefited so much from that added perspective. Other mentors and coaches at times in my life, like it's just helpful to have somebody guide you a little bit. And
for sure. For sure.
There are other ways of doing it. And maybe you get to kind of pick and choose, but you're putting it again, you're not Frankensteining a result that is haphazard. It's taking elements, putting them together and under one umbrella that is you. It actually will work because it's your personality.
Yes. Well, I think you and I do that a lot for each other in marriage. Mm-hmm. If I have a problem and I take it to you, I think you're really great about saying, do you want me to just hear this or are you actively looking for a solution?
Yeah.
And so if I'm in the place where I'm actively looking for a solution, I've come to you because I'm frustrated because I can't see it any other way. And I know there has to be another way to see it or else I wouldn't feel locked.
You have the business of your life. You have the business of making money, which we all do.
It's that Jay-Z line.
What's that? I'm homeschooled. I don't know what you're talking about.
It's not I'm a businessman. It's I'm a business man.
Yes. What she said.
But just in case anybody mistakes me for a big Jay-Z fan, it's 50 Cent, people.
See, that's if you put those two in front of me, I'd be like,
that's my big. I'm a big 50 fan.
I think that's 50 Cent. I wouldn't know.
I know you wouldn't know, but you'll know when I'm at the final lap tour.
Amazing. All right. Well, we'll see you guys.
All right. See you guys.
Thank you for listening and or watching the Dental and Mental podcast. If you enjoyed this episode or any others for that matter, feel free to tap that subscribe button on YouTube, Apple, Amazon, as well as Spotify. While you're there, why not leave us a review up to 5 stars? And if you're on YouTube, go ahead and leave us a comment. Let us know what topic you want us to discuss next.
If you like what you heard today and you want to be involved in the Thrive world from coaching to courses or just to connect with us, go to thethrivedentist.com.